Welcome to the Biz Podcast, your number one source for all business news.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to B2B Vault, sponsored by Nationwide Payment Systems. And we're going to where we talk about sales, we talk about business, we talk about payments, and we never wear ties. So there's no ties, no fancy outfits. We just talk business and have a good time doing it. And today, my special guest is Stacy Bishop from, what's the name of your company again?
Selling Fintech.
Selling Fintech. Yeah, well, Stacy's been around in the Fintech industry for a number of years, and we've run across each other's path a couple of times. And now she's launching a new venture where she helps Fintech companies as their chief revenue officer and helps them, add payments, work with banks, work with neobanks, work with Fintechs. And we're going to dive in and we're going to talk Fintech today on B2B Vault with Stacy Bishop. So welcome to the show, Stacy.
Thank you, Alan, for having me.
So where are you living? St. Louis?
No, I wish. Spent a portion of our time there. We had recently relocated down to a lake area in Missouri. It's a little town called Shell Knob on Table Rock Lake. Beautiful. It's where we had planned to retire. We accelerated those plans a bit, moved down here early. So fun stuff. You're seeing an unfinished house behind you. We'll get there though, Alan. I'll keep you updated on that progress. Yeah.
All right. Well, you're not far from my daughter. She lives in Cedar Rapids, so Missouri's like right there.
Quick
you guys
drive.
getting some of that snow that she got today?
We are. The kids are home. Hopefully they will be quiet and stay out of this room. But yeah, we did. And it's very chilly here. As I'm speaking to someone that is not in a cold location.
You up with some flamingo.
I know, right?
Today. Right. I'm wearing my flamingo. Warming you up with sending you some heat from South Florida.
Thank you, sir.
80 degrees.
Jeez. Yeah, that's just cruel. That's like as cruel as what the Eagles did to my Chiefs this weekend. You just taunting me with the warm weather that you have. Cruel.
So let's dive into Fintech. Probably some of the the biggest things going on with Fintech now is a lot of talk about embedded payments, embedding all sorts of payments inside of applications on websites and portals, doing all kinds of different things like that. And it's that's like the biggest like buzzword now is Rocky doesn't like embedded payments.
I get you, Rocky.
Rocky, come here.
But you're exactly right, Alan. I mean, embedded banking is the thing right now. It is such an untapped market at this point in the U.S., especially. The statistics as far as growth opportunities are hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of the next 4 years by 2030. It's amazing. I think somewhere 170-ish billion, if I'm not mistaken, is just up for grabs. And to your point, there are these fintechs, and when I say fintech, any company that's moving money, and it can be moving money across a variety of different ways or paths. That could be with credit cards, debit cards. It can be via ACH, wires. There's a broad term. This fintech is pretty broad in its reach. But all of these companies that are starting, they need a way to move money, and they're looking for relationships, either directly with banks and credit unions, where a great deal of my specialty is, or with other types of payment providers out there in the industry. So it's also, however, just one of the least tapped markets right now. Tons of opportunity in the banking space. You'll hear this referred to as embedded banking, embedded finance, or another term is BaaS, BaaS, and that stands for banking as a service.
Yeah,
I happen to be married. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say what's interesting is I've been listening to people talk about banking as a service for a couple of years. I've even talked to a few credit card processors who were trying to, add into their portal, so where, merchants, when they have a merchant account, they log into a portal and try to add different services in there. But I think when business owners think about banks, I think we look at it. I look at my business and I look at two separate age groups. So I look at the age group over here, 40 to 45 and above. Those guys are looking to walk into the bank like me. I like to go to my bank and touch the bank. Although I do some online banking. I mean, I use Betterment,
Okay.
which is basically, which is a really cool product, where you can put money and they pay interest and they spread your funds across 8 different banks. It's crazy. When you look at the statement, it's pretty unreal how they do that. And, but I've talked to companies and they're like, oh, want to put banking. And then I've talked to like these online banks who are just banking as a service and they're sponsored by, other banks, and they're trying to embed payments into their banking. So when you open up a bank account, they're embedding some kind of embedding like a merchant account there. So it's pretty interesting where, all the different directions everything is going in.
You're so right. I mean, fintechs, just by nature, these are solutions that in most cases they're app driven. We all have these phones. We all want to be able to interact with a service like Betterment or, pick a product, pick a fintech provider. And we want to do it from one consolidated user experience. And that's where I think the embedded component comes into play, because at least in my opinion, I actually happen to be in that group you mentioned where I don't like to go into the bank, but I am in that group that you mentioned, Alan. But I am in that stage where I would love to be able to do the majority of things in one place, in one app. And when it comes to doing things like, I don't know, ordering coffee, you can do that and pay for that inside a Starbucks app, or, selecting any type of money movement, money payment. Uber is a good example. DoorDash is a good example. These players are embedding payment options inside their apps, which is what we as end users now expect. Nobody wants to order food on DoorDash and then have to go over to their bank to pay for that or transfer money. That's just not the experience we're looking for, or that these providers have made us used to. And that's why I think banking itself is on the verge of change, and why we're likely going to see much, much more in the way of embedded and BaaS banking in fintech apps or payment rails, more specifically to your specialty inside these fintechs. That's just kind of my view on it. I might be a bit biased. I happen to be married to a banker that is also a BaaS banker. So he does embedded banking. This is all the things we talk about all the time: payments, opening accounts, embedding, etc.
What's interesting is when you talk to bankers, and I speak to all bankers in all types of industries, B2B, B2C, right? And when we talk to them about banking, like I bank at a bank, whatever, doesn't matter, Truist, okay? And so I had to get, so I was, when the rates were high, I was putting money in CDs, then you have to go flip them. They're like, oh, you have to come to the bank and come sign a paper. But recently, when I had to flip some CDs, I didn't have to sign anything. They just did it all over the phone, which shocked me. They're not even asking me, which I don't really love. Right. But I think like one thing that I think these banks need to do is they need to really start thinking about security, because security is a huge problem right now with like Zelle, Cash App, Venmo. Those are all fintechs. I mean, we have all these scam text messages going around Florida where people are getting texts and emails. Oh, you didn't pay your Florida toll on the the toll, and then people
I
are
get
clicking
those.
on it, and then they're
Yeah.
putting in their credit card, and then their credit card gets whacked with a bunch of fraudulent charges 10 minutes later. And
Yep.
this is, people need to do that. I mean, we just had Internet Safety Day was recently, and people just don't need to have better awareness about security when it comes to like getting a text, getting an email. Should you click on the link? Should you not click on the link? And things like that. Like, I'm surprised that the bank's like, oh, we're going to send you a code, read us the code over the phone, or hit OK on your phone for us to flip this around. No, granted, they're not moving the money, but there's been a lot of problems with things like that. People's bank account getting compromised, and those kind of things. But the other thing where I see a lot of movement is a lot of like SaaS companies and credit card processors, and even banks don't do a good job of this, but like when I think about embedded banking, I also think about embedded, finance, like loans. So, like, it would be nice when I log into my bank. Oh, you qualify for this kind of loan, or, oh, you have, this much money in your savings account. Do you want to open a CD? Here's the rates. Like, they haven't got the bigger institutions haven't got to that point yet, of doing that. And even the smaller institutions, like smaller online banks, they don't even have these kind of services, and consumers are forced to, and even business people. But one of the things about banking as a service that I've heard from a lot of people is like opening a business checking account, like not in person, like over the internet, is a huge challenge for them. And I did speak with this one bank, and they got frauded out of some large sums of money by people setting up a fraudulent bank account and then a fraudulent merchant account, and then the bank ended up taking the hit.
It is, you have touched upon some major topics in banking, and these are like, they're the hot buttons next to embedded regulatory and compliance. Like what we refer to in the industry as reg tech is maybe, dare I say, the sexiest thing that bankers are speaking about. And it's not that it's a super compelling topic all the time. Nobody wants to talk about fraud, but we have to because of some of these instances that you've noted. And I think it's even more complicated now for bankers and likely financial services as a whole, because now we have, I hate to say AI, but AI absolutely changing the game. And now we have AI tools that can replicate voices. We have AI tools that can really cause a banker or someone that holds your information probably to doubt themselves. And normally these fraudsters have been going after the bank customers or the credit union customers. Now we definitely see them also going after the bank in that regard. And I'm not sure what the solve is for this. I think it's going to be a constant iteration, because these fraudsters, these people, these bad actors are so ingenuitive, I guess, will be the nicest term I can say for what they do.
It would be a lot better if they use their talents for something legal versus illegal activity of getting money out of people's bank accounts. Like, you have to be so careful. You can get a fake email from an e-commerce brand that you're familiar with, and then all of a sudden you're going onto a fake website with Cyrillic type that you're not familiar with, and all of a sudden you're doing a transaction and someone's got your credit card information.
Oh yeah.
Or you think you're logging into PayPal or Zelle or Cash App, and you're really logging into a scammer's website. They get your info and then they empty your account out. No, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who I've talked about on my podcast a number of times, I don't feel that like the people that run that and the people that are on the financial committee of the House of Representatives and the Senate. I don't feel that these people really understand how how banks work, how payment networks work, like how Visa and MasterCard work. I mean, I don't know if you saw the last hearing that they had Visa and MasterCard there. They're asking them, oh, Visa, how come there's $1 trillion in debt or whatever it is, right? And the woman from Visa says, oh, yeah, but that's not us. You need to talk to the banks. So they don't even understand that like Visa has nothing to do with who's loaning the money out, right? And then they're trying to regulate all these buy now, pay later companies, and this is all fintech. It's all financial technology, and it's and there's no. I feel like they does not and then we get to like open banking, right, which is a whole nother category of oh, can you walk into Truist, hand them some money, and they're going to go send it over to be a Bank of America for you, because that's what like basically open banking would be. And how is that going to be handled? And I think that the government needs to they need to get it together. They can't have these lay people, right? They're not even coming up with rules. They're just like everything is like, oh, we have a problem, now we need to react to it. Like all of a sudden people getting money stolen from Zelle, right? And then all of a sudden they made some of the banks give back millions of dollars to people. I'm not sure that's fair or not fair, but now, like my bank, if I add somebody to Zelle, they send you an email, they send you a text message. You got to put codes in. You got to do all these things before you can send money anywhere. And I think that they really need to start, and also passwords. Let's not even get that's like my least favorite thing in the whole world is dealing with passwords and websites, and every website has a different combination. Oh, you can't use a number. You can't use how the password has to be put together. I mean, it's crazy. Some of the stuff that's going on. And I think like security definitely needs to be addressed.
Security is a tough one. This is that area where I don't know what the proper solution is, but I do know as a person that has to log into these websites like you, I want it balanced. I want it balanced between ease of use and ease of entry and security. And I think there are some sites that go way overboard in trying to make the site secure. I appreciate what they're doing, but it seems like overkill. And then you have those sites where I'm thinking, okay, did they just want to see if I had a pulse? It was a very basic type of it didn't even feel like a strong password situation. So that I think is going to be a continual struggle for us, especially more and more sites requiring passwords, more and more apps requiring passwords. To your point, all of the different configurations that are required that we as end users have to just deal with and manage. And it's not the best feeling, and it's one that I'm going to be anxious to see what continues to happen there. I hear my dog, by the way, snoring. Can you guys? I hope you can't hear that right behind me.
He's probably snoring now too.
I opened up my heart a little bit. I'm like, okay, come on in. But I was going to ask you, Alan, what are you thinking? So the CFPB, man, it's an organization that people love or hate. There's not a lot of middle ground. What do you think about? Have you heard about some of these new pauses on the whole CFPB, their policies and their components since the new administration took office? What do you think about that? Are you
I think that I think in general, we cannot have bureaucrats or people who work in the government make rules and laws. And that's a huge issue about anything. Doesn't matter what it is. I think like they need to I think when you listen to some of these hearings and they're discussing banking and they're discussing credit card processing and they're discussing credit and loans and interest rates and all these different things, what I see is a bunch of people asking questions to people, and they don't know. First of all, the people asking the question are asking the wrong person the wrong question, and they're not getting the answer they want. They're just putting them on blast, right? Oh, we're going to yell at Visa and MasterCard, right? Where's American Express? Where's Discover? Where's, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase Bank? Where's the president of Bank of America? I mean, if they understood how all these systems work, I'm glad. I'll go teach them a class. They can fly me up to DC. I'll sit all the people down on the financial committee and go over like credit card processing 101. Here's how it all works, right? But they're not. There's no regulation. There's no standards. I mean, look at buy now, pay later. They sit there. They want to go hog wild on that, right? And if you look at what happened in Europe and Australia, this is why we have buy now, pay later, because they regulated credit card processing. They drove the price down. Then consumers could not get credit anymore. So they had less credit to deal with. They don't really have debit in those countries. They have some other form of like debit payments. And now you have buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later. Not good because it costs the consumer more money and the business more money. So they said, oh, we're going to go do this to these companies, right? Then it produced something else that cost more money than what people were paying before. And that's what people don't seem to understand is how that works. But, when we're talking about embedded payments and embedded finance, I think, we launched a project called the Merchant Toolbox and another project called the ISV Toolbox. And those are tools so that ISVs, fintechs, can go add into their software, here you can put payroll in there. Oh, you can get a business loan by clicking a button and apply for a business loan. You could add buy now, pay later if you're selling large scale items and consumers need financing. And then it's all built in, have it all built into your software because companies like Square, companies like Stripe, QuickBooks, Toast, they're already doing all that. So businesses need to catch up to do all these things. And it's the same thing with embedded with banking. Banks need to figure out like, okay, well, where am I going to embed all these bank accounts? Like, are people going to want to? One of the things I find with the neobanks when I talk to them is I'm like, okay, you want me to send you customers, right? Let's just have a restaurant, right? Okay. And you want me to get my customers to bank with you. But they don't have the ability to write checks. They don't have the ability. They can pay bills with like a credit card or a debit card, right, but they can't write a check. Not that businesses need to write that many checks anymore, because you might have to pay by you need to ACH money to your liquor vendor, the food vendor. Some of them still pick up paper checks.
Yeah. That's true.
They still pick up paper checks, right? But then you have to these businesses have to deal with payroll, right? So they can't just take the money from bank A and send it to bank B so they can run payroll. And that's where I think some of these banks are the banking as a service, where most of them that I've talked to are lacking in those capabilities for people to run. While you can get your money faster, right? And then you can move money around. Simple thing like payroll, they don't have a way for businesses to run payroll out of those bank accounts.
It's like that complete ecosystem is what it's lacking from many people. And it's tough to replicate. And kudos to you guys for figuring that out and doing that with your ISV toolkit, because I do think it's going to empower Sure, fintechs, of course, but also just, any small business owner, which by the way, my husband and I fall into that category as well. So I try to look at things from a couple of different lenses, fintechs that work with and sell to banks, fintechs that work directly with small business owners or directly to a customer, because of course I'm that in many regards. But I love something you said, and it just hits home, and it's talking about just the complexity of the payments environment. And you, having lived and worked in this space for so long, you have this expertise, this knowledge that the vast majority of us do not. Like, truly, even growing up in banking, I dare say I couldn't even be in the same ballpark with you when it comes to that payment knowledge. I know enough to be dangerous, sure, but it's complex when you are a fintech founder trying to figure out which route to go and what your payment and money movement options are. It's really complex for a small business owner as well that it has a more traditional type of brick and mortar business, something you might see on Main Street. I think it's a challenge, let alone congressional people that are making decisions on laws and regulations. So it's a challenging issue, because I think it's a challenging and a complicated space. And what do you think? How do you go about when you're selling to people, Alan? Or working with providers or small business owners or whomever? How do you lay out the landscape? Do you just start by telling them their options and the ecosystem? I'm dying to know.
We try to figure out, like, okay, what are your needs, right? And then basically, listen, we used to just go around selling these things for years, right?
Yes.
Just putting a credit card machine. Now everybody wants to have a POS system. They need some kind of technology. And it used to be like, when I started in my company in 2001, people built software to sell hardware and service contracts. Today, any company who's building out software, they're thinking about SaaS revenue, and they're thinking about what's the cheapest way I can put this thing out there? Like, will it work on an Android tablet? Will it work on an existing Windows computer? And then embedding payments, right? Putting payments in there, and then figuring out like how they can make money from that. And that's something like we're launching now, like a whole white label, so people can like white label. Like, let's say you had salon software, we can white label the whole portal, so your customers can go in, sign up, have a portal, and they would see Stacy's beauty salon software, right? Or whatever that software's, whatever business vertical you're doing, or whatever it is. So we're able to like set all that up for somebody, right? Work with you. You have a fintech, you bring them to us, and we help them navigate that whole thing, plus plug in the ISV toolbox tools so they can create more stickiness for with their clients and create extra revenue at the same time. So it's super important to figure out how this whole puzzle is. And then, hey, are we going to bring in like a banking piece into there at some point and go, okay, you can now embed some banking in there, embed loans into these systems, so that people can log in, and let's just say it's a veterinary clinic, and they go, oh, look, I need to go buy something, and they say, oh, I'm eligible for a $50,000 credit line. So it's a whole ecosystem of all these things, like plugged it, you got to plug this in here, plug that in there, and that's what we do. We thread the needle. We figure out, okay, what are you doing? What do you need? Do you need a credit card machine? Do you need point of sale? Do you need some software because you're doing some complicated billing? Or maybe you need to be using a gateway or for your website. And then what kind of features do you have? I mean, we're dealing with now is this whole click to cancel law that the FTC put out. So people have to have on their website, as easy as it was to sign up, it has to be that easy to cancel. And that's going to cause a lot of problems. And there's a big fine, 55 grand per incident.
Ooh, per incident. I don't think I realized that price point. Yikes. So you want to be working with somebody that knows their stuff.
Right. So it's the same, everything is when we talk about innovation and we talk about fintech, it's like a new word in the last couple of years, and innovation is moving at a rapid speed. Like the payments industry is changing so rapidly. Like it's just changing, and all this banking, the banking stuff that's changing really fast too. And that's why, and there's all types of companies trying to get into the space to move money around. Like there's all these, even these payroll companies now are, coming up with these portals. Oh, you can go in here and put all your commission salespeople in and then pay them out and do all this, do all these different things online. And it's, to help everybody move money around. And that's what it is. It's all moving money all around. But, companies need to think about what are those guardrails going to look like? How are they going to not not have too much security, but have enough security so that they don't get ripped off and their customers don't get ripped off.
Yeah, good point.
And it's a fine line to figure out how to deal with that. And let's answer this question. What is the perfect, if somebody's listening to the podcast and they go, I want to reach out to Stacy. Stacy Bishop, she's on LinkedIn. And I'm on LinkedIn too, but she's on LinkedIn. You can contact her there. Is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm a basic STACY Bishop. So yes, sir.
Okay. And then what is your ideal customer that's going to come to you that you can help? What's your ideal client?
Sure. My ideal client, it's likely a very technical fintech founder. Because here's the scoop, what I have learned in working with fintech for the past, 25 plus years or so, selling different sizes of fintechs. Fintech founders, those that are starting out, developing their solution, they are the most intelligent people. They truly, truly are. In most cases, they're also very technical oriented. They're the ones in there creating the code, creating the solution. And then guess what? They're small. They're forced to sell their own product. And selling is something that doesn't always come supernaturally to people. It can be intimidating. And a lot of founders I speak with go straight for a hefty discount just to get the deal done and to win a logo. So my ideal client, I guess, is working with these technical fintech founders that are at a stage where they may not be able to devote money to a chief revenue officer or a CRO or a VP of sales or even a sales staff at all. They're doing it, they're living it, they're building the company, but they need some guidance when it comes to selling to banks or credit unions. And that has been my background. That is what I know, and that is what I specialize in.
No,
so
it's
thanks
important.
For asking, Alan.
It's super important because one of the things I talk about a lot when I talk about business to people is, I'm going to open a business. Okay, and the first question I ask them, I said, okay, well, what are you going to do to get sales? And they're like, I'm not a salesperson. If you're going to have a business, you need to think about being a salesperson. When I was a chef, my boss told me one day, he goes, you have to go into the catering office and help the woman who's selling catering. I'm not going to remember her name off the top of my head. She was a really, really cool to work with. And I learned a lot about selling from her. And you have to go in there and sell yourself. So these people are going to book this party. And I was scared to death. Well, what am I going to say to these people? And I just remember, when I went to culinary school, the chef who was teaching us about things, he said, whenever you have to talk to customers, he goes, dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. So,
that's sales, right?
Right. That's what he used to say. And then they ended up sending me to Dale Carnegie to take a sales course.
Oh, yes.
And one of the things that I learned is you are the expert. So I'm the expert at B2B Vault, Nationwide Payment Systems. Stacy is the expert at what she does. We're the experts. And that's the thing. When you own a business, you have to remember that you are the expert, right? And you also have to build a team. And where a lot of times people fail is like delegation, right? So how am I going to delegate to different people these tasks, right? And at the same time, it doesn't matter if you're the owner, you also have to do sales, and you got to put yourself out there. And we're in a different place. So you got to put yourself out there on LinkedIn. You got to put yourself out there on Facebook. You have to be where your customers are going to be, because the other thing that I see is like in person, like trade shows and things like that. The attendance on those is way down.
Oh, really?
Maybe some of them it's still strong in certain very niche type of things, but in a lot of spaces, it's kind of like not as busy as it once was.
I could see that. I can absolutely see that. I love what you said about these founders needing to create a personal brand. I mean, because you are the face of your company, and to the degree that you can just work your way through the discomfort of posting on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever your prospects are, just lean into it and do it. It's only going to get better. It's never going to get worse. You're never going to get worse at it, I dare say. And I think that's very important. And I also try to keep in mind that these founders, and you kind of touched on this, they're doing a lot. They're wearing a lot of different hats. They may be the chef in the back, also part-time seller, part-time going to get groceries, part-time. Their founders are often, or business owners are often, we know this, wearing all the hats that need to be worn until they can afford to build a team. And when you're mentally switching between all of these tasks, and then you have to throw in sales as well, it can be uncomfortable. So something you said, Alan, I love it, but I've heard it phrased this way as well. Your story is your authority. You're the expert. I'm the expert in what we do. Lean into your expertise as a business owner, and then find the people like Alan, or if you need some assistance like me. And we'll be honest, if we can't help you, if we're not a fit. But
sometimes it's not about like hiring people. Sometimes it's like, hey, who can I partner with to accomplish this? Like, we partner with a lot of companies who have technology, and we might not make, the big commission. We make a little less commission than we normally make, but now we have the technology to sell to our clients, which we couldn't sell them anyway if we didn't have that partnership. So it's important to not just think about like, oh, how can I do all this by myself? Having the right partners so that you can accomplish what you're doing. Like a lot of software companies run to Stripe. Stripe's not going to be your partner. You can't call them on the phone. You can't talk to them. You're not going to get an advisor like with us, with Nationwide, or you come to Stacy. You're going to get that. You're going to have that advisor that you're going to be able to talk to, and have a partner that you can work with. And that's what people need to, get out of, listening to the podcast is, learning like, there are experts out there in the area, the fintech, that you can reach out to and have a conversation with.
Oh yeah. And we can be a bit more
today.
Like we're having today.
Right.
And we can be more creative, honestly, when it comes to structuring partnerships than some of those bigger logos that you've mentioned, because there's a lot of levers, a lot of things that might be important to you and or me, Alan, that a fintech owner in my case may not have thought through, but different ways that aren't always just about shelling out money. There's ways to structure ways in which we can work together. So I always think that's part of the fun is trying to figure out a scenario that works for both and that ultimately benefits both players, both partners.
Any final words as we're gonna sign off soon?
I mean, watch every episode of B2B Vault that you can and check out Alan, who I have really grown to know and just like so much since I have known you, Alan, a year, maybe a couple of years at this point. I always learn something. So check out everything that he does. And if I can ever be of assistance or even guidance, that's another big thing I like to do is just have conversations with people, create connections with people. It's about just, sometimes being a good person in business, and that's what I strive to do. So if I can help you, fantastic. If I can't, I will let you know. The very least, I can absolutely connect you to someone like Alan or others that can help you or your business. So that's what I would say in parting.
Thank you to everybody for listening to B2B Vault. Thank you to Stacy Bishop, Selling Fintech. You can find Stacy on LinkedIn. You can find B2B Vault everywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Pandora. We're everywhere. We're on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. Everybody's on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's, so that's the podcast for today. Carpe diem. Again, we never wear ties, but we're always making sales.
Right.
Everybody have a great day. Thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks, Alan, for having me. Bye now.